There is a strange feeling many introverts recognize immediately. What you write, when you're alone, when no one is watching, feels refined, precise, layered, almost like something carefully cut and polished. But when you stand in front of other people and try to say the same thing, the words come out rough, fragmented, like raw stones pulled straight from the ground. It's tempting to believe this means something is wrong with you, that you think better on paper than in real life, that your intelligence somehow disappears the moment you open your mouth. But that conclusion is wrong, and psychology gives us a much more interesting explanation. Many introverts grow up carrying a quiet misunderstanding that fluency in speech equals clarity of thought. If you hesitate, if you pause too long, if your sentences don't land cleanly, then you must not really know what you're talking about. This belief is reinforced early. Classrooms reward quick answers. Meetings reward whoever speaks first, not whoever thinks longest. Conversation favors speed, not depth. So introverts learn to doubt themselves. Yet modern psychology suggests almost the opposite is true. A large number of introverts express themselves far more accurately and far more deeply through writing than through spontaneous speech. So much so that they often feel like two different people exist, the person on the page and the person in conversation. To understand why, we have to stop treating talking and thinking as the same process. They are not. Speaking is a real-time performance. It demands immediate access to thoughts, quick filtering, and instant delivery, all while managing social feedback, eye contact, facial reactions, interruptions, judgment. Writing removes nearly all of that. Writing is slow, private, forgiving, and for the introverted mind, that difference changes everything. Introverts tend to process information deeply before expressing it. Their thoughts form in layers, not sound bites. Ideas connect underground before they surface. Imagine a mind that works like a deep-sea diver instead of a speedboat. A speedboat skims the surface quickly. It looks impressive in motion, but it never goes far below. A diver moves slowly, deliberately, descending into pressure and darkness, collecting things that cannot be reached in a hurry. Speech favors speedboats. Writing favors diverse. When an introvert is forced to speak before their internal processing is complete, the result isn't emptiness, it's interruption. Thoughts are cut mid-formation. Connections remain unfinished. What comes out sounds simpler than what exists inside. This is why many introverts report the same frustrating experience. I only realized what I wanted to say after the conversation was over. Not because the idea didn't exist before, but because it hadn't fully surfaced yet. Writing gives it time to surface. On paper, introverts can externalize thought at the same pace it develops internally. They can pause without penalty, rearrange without embarrassment, refine without being watched. This is not a small advantage. It is a structural one. Neuroscience supports this distinction. Speaking relies heavily on working memory, fast, temporary storage that must retrieve and discard information rapidly. Introverts often excel instead at long-term associative memory, where ideas are stored richly but accessed more slowly. That trade-off is disastrous in spontaneous conversation, but it is ideal for writing. Writing allows the mind to dig rather than grab, to excavate meaning instead of improvising, and this is where the metaphor of gold becomes useful. Gold is not found on the surface. It doesn't reward speed or noise. It rewards patience, pressure, and time underground. Introverted thought works the same way, but conversation rarely gives enough time to mine it. There is another layer to this problem that is often overlooked: interruption. Introverted thinking tends to follow long, continuous threads. Once broken, those threads are hard to reattach. Being interrupted mid-thought doesn't just pause an introvert, it collapses the entire structure they were building. They don't resume where they left off. They have to start again. Writing protects against this. No one cuts you off mid-sentence. No one hijacks the direction of your thought. The flow remains intact from beginning to end. This uninterrupted flow is not a luxury for introverts. It is a requirement. Without it, depth becomes inaccessible. And so, what looks like poor verbal expression is often something else entirely, a mismatch between the environment and the mind. Introverts are not bad at expressing themselves. They are bad at expressing themselves under constant pressure. Remove the pressure, and a different voice appears. To understand why writing unlocks clarity for introverts, we have to talk about stimulation. Not motivation, not confidence. Stimulation. Introverts are neurologically more sensitive to external input, especially social input. Voices, eye contact, facial expressions, sudden questions, interruptions. Each one adds noise to the system. For some people, that noise is energizing. For introverts, it is costly. Conversation is not a neutral channel. It constantly demands attention in multiple directions at once. You're not just thinking. You are monitoring reactions, adjusting tone, predicting responses, correcting yourself mid-sentence. This creates a subtle but relentless cognitive load. The result isn't panic, it's compression. Thoughts become shorter, sentences flatten, complex ideas are simplified, not because the mind can't handle complexity, but because the environment punishes it. This is why many introverts describe social conversation as mentally exhausting even when it's pleasant. Their mind isn't idle, it's overloaded. Writing removes this load almost entirely. There is no audience watching you think, no immediate evaluation, no pressure to fill silence. Silence, in writing, is allowed, and silence is where introverted thought actually organizes itself. Another critical factor is interruption. Introverts often think in long arcs rather than short bursts. Ideas unfold gradually, each layer resting on the previous one. When that arc is broken by someone jumping in, changing the topic, or demanding a quick answer, the structure collapses. What looks like losing your train of thought is often something deeper. The entire conceptual framework dissolves. This is why introverts don't simply pick up where they left off. They don't return to the sentence. They return to the beginning. Writing protects against this fragility. You control the pace. You decide when to pause. No one derails the process. This uninterrupted continuity is what allows introverts to enter a state of flow. Flow requires three things: clear goals, manageable challenge, and minimal external interference. Conversation violates at least two of these. Writing satisfies all three. When an introvert writes, attention turns inward. Energy stops leaking outward. The mind settles. Instead of reacting, it constructs. Instead of defending, it explores. This is why writing often feels restorative to introverts rather than draining. It doesn't just express thought, it processes it. There is also the issue of anxiety, not necessarily clinical anxiety, but anticipatory tension. Introverts are often more sensitive to negative feedback and social misalignment. They notice subtle shifts in tone. They detect hesitation, confusion, impatience. In conversation, this sensitivity becomes a liability. Every raised eyebrow becomes a distraction. Every pause feels like a failure. The mind redirects energy away from thinking and towards self-monitoring. Writing removes this threat. There is no immediate judgment, no visible disappointment, no pressure to repair misunderstandings on the spot. You can be wrong privately, you can revise silently, you can change your mind without consequence. This psychological safety is not indulgent, it is functional. It allows introverts to take intellectual risks they would never take out loud, to follow an idea to its edge, to sit with ambiguity, to articulate something half-formed until it becomes precise. In conversation, half-formed ideas are dangerous. They can be misunderstood, challenged, or dismissed before they are ready. On the page, they are allowed to grow. There is a reason many introverts report that they only truly understand what they think after writing it down. Writing is not transcription for them. It is discovery. Speech assumes thought is complete before expression. Writing allows thought to become complete through expression. This difference is subtle but decisive. Conversation demands clarity up front. Writing creates clarity over time. And time is exactly what introverted cognition needs. Think of it like pressure versus patience. Conversation applies pressure. Respond now, answer quickly, keep it moving. Writing offers patience. Pause, reconsider, go deeper. Introverted thought thrives under patience and collapses under pressure. So when introverts say, "I'm better at writing than talking," they are not making a stylistic preference. They are describing an environmental truth. Change the environment, and the mind reveals its real shape. Introverts are often described as quiet, but quiet is a surface description. It tells you what is absent, not what is happening. What is usually happening instead is observation. Introverts tend to spend more time watching than participating. They listen longer than they speak. They notice patterns, inconsistency, emotional undercurrents. This isn't passivity, it's data collection. While others speak, introverts are tracking context. While conversations move on, they are still processing what was just said. Over time, this creates an internal archive. Experiences, impressions, half-understood insights, emotional residue. Most of it is never spoken out loud. Not because introverts lack opinions, but because many of those observations are too complex, too tentative, or too interconnected to survive casual conversation. Speech prefers conclusions. Introverted observation often lives in questions. Writing becomes the place where this accumulated material can finally be released. On the page, introverts can unpack what they've been carrying. They can slow the world down enough to examine it. This is why introverted writing often feels reflective, symbolic, or emotionally layered. It isn't rushed toward a point. It circles meaning until it becomes visible. Conversation rarely allows for this. In everyday speech, there is little tolerance for ambiguity. You are expected to know what you mean before you say it. Introverts often don't. They know what something feels like long before they know what it means. Writing bridges that gap. It allows feeling to gradually crystallize into language. This is also why introverts frequently describe writing as honest in a way speaking is not. When speaking, they are editing in real time, simplifying, softening, withholding. When writing, that filter loosens, not because the audience disappears, but because distance appears. Distance from reaction, distance from misunderstanding, distance from immediate consequence. That distance gives introverts room to be precise instead of performative. There is a misconception that writing is a fallback for people who can't speak well. For introverts, it's usually the opposite. Writing is where their thinking reaches its final form. Speech is often an early draft. This is why so many introverts feel a strange disconnect when people judge them based on conversation alone. The person others meet socially is not the whole person. It is the compressed version, optimized for speed and safety. The uncompressed version lives elsewhere, often on the page. And this is not something to fix. It is something to aim. When introverts try to force themselves to excel in environments built for fast talkers, they burn energy fighting their own structure. When they place their energy where it belongs, writing, long-form thinking, deliberate communication, the same mind suddenly looks articulate, insightful, even sharp. Nothing changed internally, only the medium did. This reframes the original metaphor. Your spoken words are not crude because your thoughts are crude. They are crude because they are unprocessed or forced out too early. Your writing is refined because it allows pressure, time, and solitude to do their work. Gold doesn't appear because it's shouted into existence. It appears because it's given space to form. If you are an introvert who has ever felt split in two, eloquent on the page, invisible in conversation, understand this. You are not failing to express yourself. You are expressing yourself in the environment your mind was designed for. And once you stop apologizing for that, writing stops being a refuge and becomes a voice.